Na década de 40, o economista Joseph Schumpeter afirmou: o capitalismo evolui por meio da seleção natural entre as empresas. Só que essa seleção costuma ser cruel. No Brasil, por exemplo, quase 80% das empresas que eram consideradas as maiores do país há 35 anos já não existem mais. Para sobreviver, o caminho é apostar em inovação, transformar ideias criativas em ganhos reais. A tese é defendida com entusiasmo pelo economista americano Robert Rosenfeld, que conversou com a repórter Heloísa Gomide em São Paulo. Neste Conta Corrente Especial, você vai ver que no caminho para a inovação é preciso respeitar a cultura de cada empresa.
Okay, we know you wrote a very successful book about this. What's the formula to have innovation in your life, in your career, in your company? Is there a recipe for being creative?
When you think of a recipe, you think of, if I put all these pieces together, I can now cook it and it's perfect. The book focuses on the principles that sustain innovation, the human principles that sustain innovation. These principles are timeless. And what's very important is, if you understand these principles and your leadership lives it and transmits it, it creates the culture of innovation that's necessary to sustain innovation. So, for example, at its most fundamental level, trust is the foundation by which all things happen. And it doesn't really matter whether I'm here in Brazil or I happen to be in Mumbai or I happen to be in Rochester, New York, where I come from. Trust is foundational. And trust is not something you talk about, it's something you live. Innovation is it is basically the lifeblood of a company. If I don't innovate, I die. If I don't continue to create new, I die. But what we forget lots of times is that creation of new ranges from one end of a spectrum to another, from incremental to breakthrough. Incremental is, how do I improve something? I must continuously improve whatever I'm doing. And it runs all the way over to the other side, which is breakthrough, which is brand new ways or breaking the current paradigm of thought and coming up with a brand new product or service. That whole spectrum is innovation.
And how do you find out which one is you?
Very good. So let me just answer one other thing. Innovation is when I take a creative act and I generate novel thought and I go all the way through to a quantifiable gain. And a quantifiable gain is something I can measure. I'll give you an example. It's easy in business. I can take a look at my bottom line, I have a quantifiable gain. But if I'm a school system in a city, my quantifiable gain would be the number of students that graduate. If I'm a university, it might be the number of students that attend, that go into successful professions. It could be the number of publications I have, but it's always measurable.
So you have to measure to know how creative and different ideas you can get.
Right, you have to measure the end result. I have to be able to see it. So I can have a lot of creative thought. And many of us have been in sessions, brainstorming sessions, and create lots of new things, right? But nothing ever happens. And that's because we haven't innovated, but we've created. The created is the generation of novel thought. Now, you ask the question, how do I know who I am? And the answer is, to a large extent, all of us are very complex. But basically, for innovation to happen, it only happens through people. We have to remember that. It's the people who generate the ideas. They convert the problems to ideas. It's the people that develop the trust. It's the people that understand how to make it happen. So it is up to the leadership, the innovation leadership, to literally encourage the people to step forward and be who they are, which goes back to your question. How do I know who I am? Well, there's many dimensions for you, but I'll give you one that is very interesting. In innovation, one very important dimension is your cognitive style, which means the way you think, right? And we're going to make a spectrum again between those who are builders to those who are pioneers. Builders,
everybody wants to be a pioneer.
Actually, I hope not. And here's the reason. I hope everyone learns to be who they are. And we leverage them who they are as compared to some other thing we're making up in our head. So the builders are the ones that literally run the organization. They make sure every day everything works over and over and over again. And if I want to put a successful product out the door, I better make sure I have people who literally do that. If not, it's not going to work. This station wouldn't work if I didn't have everyone working and doing what they had to do to make that happen. And if they decided to vary that every day and make it different, we wouldn't put anything out. So the builder side very much makes the things happen. They're at the further end of the innovation cycle. The first part deals with more of the pioneering side. These are people who generate thought that are very different. They see things very different than others. These pioneers, when they start thinking, and they start thinking about a particular problem, suddenly something else occurs to them, and their mind, we call it pinging, bounces up and back in different ways, in different subject areas, which allows them to generate thought that is very different. They're not trying to do this. This appears almost to be innate in them. So you have the builder on one end, the pioneer on the other. The pioneer likes to generate this thought, but usually doesn't like to make it happen all the way through, and likes to continue to generate the thought. So when I have an organization, the innovation leader needs to orchestrate all the people, from the builders to the pioneers. And that, if I can do that well, I can sustain the innovation that's inside my organization. And in order to do that, I have to set up infrastructure that allows that to happen.
So in your book, you said that innovation starts when you turn problems into ideas. Can you give us an example of that? Someone who could overcome a problem with moving straight forward.
Okay, there's two things. Let me go through. One of them is when you convert problems to an idea. We can take someone like de Maistre, who invented Velcro. When he invented Velcro, he was walking in the woods and a cockleburr stuck to his jacket. And he looked at that and he said, I wonder what that means. Went back, looked under a microscope, saw these hooks. And he said, oh, okay, I can make this out of it. And he made Velcro. So he converted a problem to an opportunity, to an idea. But that wasn't good enough. Now you have to make it and bring it into the marketplace. So there are certain people who convert problems to ideas, and there are other people who like to drive that into the marketplace and are much more entrepreneurial, make things happen. Inside our organization, we have all of them. And we need to know who does what, and we have to literally value all, because it's all that makes that work.
And how can a company support that in daily basis?
Okay. It can do that in different ways. For example, most of us, probably listening, would say if I'm on the incremental side, Deming really exemplifies the incremental side. But if I take a look at it, I could look at Six Sigma as a process. I could look at Kaizen Tien processes. These are different processes that have been used in different parts of the world, and I'm very sure are used here. That does incremental. And by putting that in place, the innovation leadership that's present gives the tools to the people by which to do this and make it better and better and better. Now, the other side, where we deal with the pioneers, generally speaking, we don't have a way to do that.